Hello, everybody, and welcome to Greg Heym's Crossing the Line, where apparently I say the same things every week, according to some people around here.
I don't know who
Coming
means.
to you
Scott. It was Scott.
from Studio 1873. See, I'm not saying anything after that.
Conveniently located.
Right around the corner from his office.
You know, now I'm really going to ask tough questions.
You got to finish it. You
We
can't
got,
start
as
it.
always, because we can't get rid of him, Shar Sedgh, our attorney at large, Sedgh Zuckerman. How you doing?
I am doing
I don't care.
amazing.
He was mean to me. I'm not a mean host.
I didn't see that.
Look at
I
that
don't know
smile.
what
How
he's
can I
talking
be-
about.
And since Scott Nadler is the only one I know getting sick more than me this winter, we have the lovely Lisa Rae Castrigno,
Good
Senior VP of
morning.
Research, the person lucky enough to be working with or for me for the last quarter century. Isn't that true?
I was
Absolutely.
this is our first show together, and I was
Yes.
going to say that from the shows I've watched, you are the most respected to her. Right, you're more respectable to her than anybody else. Scott gets it for his hair. I get it for being a lawyer. Morgan gets it for being a millennial,
A Gen
Right,
Zer.
young.
a Gen Z, or whatever it is. I feel like there's an admiration for her that you don't have for your other co-hosts.
That's not true as far as you know. But
Have you watched all of the shows?
I watched.
No.
Because he picks on my teams like ad nauseum, talks about my Mets.
if I'm mean to her, I get what we call the wrath of Lucy.
That's right.
And I see
An
her
Italian
mother
grandmother.
frequently
I
because
can't
she comes to gigs. We get the Straight No Clinic gigs. And she'd
right.
be like, my Lisa does fine. Why isn't she on the show more? I'm like, okay, I'll tell Shar he can't be on the show anymore. And I'm Greg Heym, in case you couldn't guess that.
Well, could
But
we
you're-
just shout out yesterday was my mommy's birthday. so
yes.
Lucy had a birthday
February
yesterday.
8th is my brother's birthday too.
Well,
See?
happy
Very
birthday
nice.
to
Well,
him.
my birthday is in
Friday
2
next week,
weeks.
or this week? Friday next
a
week.
week from Friday.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, almost 2 weeks, sorry. Yeah.
Gifts expected. I'm not going to say no gifts.
Well, the
that
gift-
bottle of scotch in my office is getting
The-
lonely.
the
I'm gonna
gift
buy you a
is
straw
that
so
he
you can
gets to
finally
work
drink
with
it.
us.
Ex-
Is that more of a gift than anyone could ask
I'm going to
for?
be in
Okay.
Texas for my birthday, actually. So maybe there'll probably
Which
be a
is a gift to
snowstorm there.
us.
No, it's a gift to Texas. Okay. All right. So Shar texted me yesterday pointing out that his Super Bowl guess was very close, but no cigar. That'd be a good gift with the scotch. Is some
Cigars.
But-
Bess is the cigar lady, right?
She's my cigar pusher
She's got
because
your
she's
cigar
got
pusher.
contacts. But all right, so now I had said that I didn't expect New England to do much because Drake May has looked terrible in the playoffs.
That's true.
And no, I mean, look, he's a second-year quarterback.
I was going to say, he's like 22, right?
Yeah, I
Still
mean,
a little young.
no, and they have a good coach. New
Very
England's going to
impressive.
be in it. I mean, for sure.
No, he's got talent.
But we're happy for Sam Darnold. I mean, way to go, Jets, you idiots. Nice going, Woody. Nice going, Joe Douglas. Nice going, Robert Saleh. Yeah, how's Zach Wilson working out? Has the guy thrown a pass in the last couple of years?
Sam Darnold would not have taken off if you stayed with the Jets. There's no way this is where his career would
I
have gone.
get it, but when you get a guy at a time when your team is terrible, that's why they had that early pick. And in games he doesn't play, you're 0-10. It's not him, it's the rest
you.
of the
Probably.
team. But, you know, Seahawks, both defenses played well initially. And when Drake May started turning the ball over, you know, you can't really blame the final
that got-
score.
that got a little
Not
ugly
a lot
there.
of flags until the end of the first half, which
Yeah.
is good too.
And don't mention the end of the first half. 20 seconds away
From
from
your boxes.
getting my
Yes,
box.
apparently.
My son was mad about that. I'm like, I'm not giving you any of the money.
Of course he expected, trickle down economics.
Yes.
Daddy wins big and Junior gets some of it.
So congratulations to the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, they played
and
great.
most notably Sam Darnold. You're a class act. You know, you're really maybe the greatest comeback story, or as good a one as I've heard. And comeback you usually think from physical ailments, but 5 teams.
In 8 seasons, right?
And he's won, I think, 30 games the last 2 years now. After way he played in Minnesota, why they let him go if they didn't make him a Syria because they wanted to stay with McCarthy. What a bad move that was. I mean, Darnold, it's not like he's, Aaron Rodgers' age. He's got a lot of years left. That team is going to be good for a long time. They got a menacing defense.
Oh, yeah.
They have the offensive player of the year. Apparently, I didn't realize Walker's a free agent, though. I think so. They got to.
I'm sure he'll come back and
They
run
got
it
to.
again.
He's MVP of the Super Bowl. You got to have him.
You got to get paid.
And that was only the second most exciting thing that happened, sports thing this weekend. The most exciting thing is I'm nodding to Rick Pitino. St. John's beat UConn.
That was a big game.
How do you like us now?
We had a great press conference afterwards, too.
Now we don't lose. And congratulations to Rick Pitino. He's number 3 now on the all-time win list.
Oh, nice.
You know, they had a rough start, 4 new starters, and now I think it's 9 or 10 in a row, and they're peaking at just the right time. And Zuby Ejiofor is the biggest player of the year. Let's just give him the award now.
Are they top 25 ranked or no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they were 22 coming in the last week, so you beat the number 3 team. You should
jump up a little bit.
You know, most of the losses were to ranked teams, so there wasn't like they were losing to teams they should have beat. Providence loss was bad, but since then they've hit another gear.
Okay.
Rick probably ripped into him. He's very good at that. If
you
watch the show,
do you watch every St. John's game?
No, I watch what I can, and now I'm missing my son. We loved going to St. John's games because that place for a game like that on Friday night was probably as loud as a Knick game because you get a lot of UConn.
Garden, right?
Yeah, you get a lot of UConn fans that go. They're
right.
obnoxious. It's good antagonistic environment. All right, we're going to get to the real news of last week right after these important commercial messages featuring a deal maker, not a deal breaker.
Do you have a big move coming up? I'm Scott Nadler with CrossCountry Mortgage, and I've got the loan to match your dream home. Whether it's your first or your 5th, I'll make the process quick and easy. Call me today. Let's make it happen.
Sedgh & Zuckerman is a boutique residential law firm guiding you and your clients every step of the way with a solution-oriented approach. Make sure to work with a deal maker and not a deal breaker. Contact us today at sznylaw.com.
All right, and we are back here at Greg Heym's Crossing the Line. Not Shar Sedge's, not Lisa Rae Castrino's. Greg Heym's Crossing the Line. I haven't been canceled yet.
You haven't been trying.
I got to try harder to get fired.
Really?
It's you know, you're nobody in radio. Look at Howard Stern fired a bunch, Rush Limbaugh fired a bunch of times. You can't just do one show and be successful.
A little controversy really bumps up the numbers.
Okay, well, we'll work on that for next
You got
week.
to nominate Scott to say something controversial.
Actually, no, no show next week. It's a holiday.
Oh, President's Day.
It's President's. See, that's why I film on Mondays, so I don't, I get the max.
We haven't had a lot of. This is a second in studio 2026.
Yeah.
Right, we're already going to the middle of February.
Because
you did a live.
We get around. We did a live one. All right. So while we were in Inman last week, and it's funny watching the video back, you could hear our voices, at least mine, start to get hoarse at the end.
Yes,
because of all the
speaking very
noise.
loud.
It was really
It was a great show.
And then we got bombed by Bess and Itzy, and
Vince.
Vince. No attention is too much attention. Rocco,
Such a
my buddy.
My buddy.
So in that episode, we were talking about the jobs report, right, and how depressing it was. Only 22,000 jobs added, jobless claims ticking up, job openings, highest level since 2020, biggest number of layoffs announced in January since 2009. It's like, oh no, the economy is shot. That's it. But look what happened towards the end of the week, last week. The Dow closes over 50,000 for the first time.
Yay.
Right? And
Go
stocks.
retirement.
You're not allowed to retire until I say you. Okay. What's that line in the Bronx? Now you just can't retire.
Now you can't get out.
Come on.
Until you say I'm in.
You're not out. You're not out till we say you're out. And what do we always say about stocks, Shar, is they're about the future, right? You're not buying a stock because of what it's done. You're buying it because you expect it to go up. Right. So this is a level of optimism, right? You feel happier? I mean, she's ready to retire. How are you feeling over this?
I mean, listen, if you're somebody who's day trading or you're trying to make quick gains, the volatility probably is a little bit intrusive of your game plan. But for somebody who's in the market long term, you're just buying and holding. I think those people don't really, ride the waves as tough as the people in and out.
But they might spend a little bit more, right, Lisa? Knowing that they're worth a little bit more, at least for now.
He always looks at me when he's going to talk about spending money.
She spends money. Now we're not going to mention the point that I got a new guitar delivered last week.
Right.
It was phenomenal. But go now. You're talking about retirement, but you live to renovate your house. And I don't know that you have much left to do.
I don't. We actually had a very nice, because I did Super Bowl at my house, had my mom's
Very
birthday.
nice.
So I got to really, try out the basement. So the furniture, the TV, it was nice. It worked out really well.
Since you got no more work to do at your house, feel free to renovate my house.
I've offered to help your wife, and then I was expressly told that I would not be allowed to do that.
Will you talk about
because I think I'll spend too much of
extending
his
the
money.
house, getting rid of this window, doing that?
No.
You can never have enough storage.
These
I
were
don't need stuff like
such
that.
small things. I wasn't talking about extending the house. That's a you thing.
All right, so the economists always get accused of being pessimists and ruining the fun. That's because they don't know me. But I was watching CNBC this morning, and they credit the record close last week to, it's technical factors. They never say, like, wow, people maybe are optimistic, right? And one of the things we heard last week was consumer confidence, lowest 2 weeks ago, lowest since before COVID even. And you go, unemployment rate's under 4.5. We're adding jobs, not a lot. We're adding some jobs. GDP grew 4.4%, I think it was, in the third quarter. Going to grow about 4% in the fourth quarter. I know why we're talking about the fourth quarter, because the shutdown. There seems to be a disconnect there. And then we got consumer sentiment, and that was actually up more than expected for this month. So there is this thing where people, depending on what you're looking at, I guess. So just, I guess the answer is just look at stocks, right, for now, and just be happy.
So we've talked about this before a lot also. I don't think the regular person is reading into, if you ask the average person what inflation is now, they probably don't have an idea.
No, but they know they don't like it. I'll tell you that much.
That's for sure. Jobs reports, they're not grinding out how many jobs there are. They're looking at their portfolio. I look at my retirement portfolio. You may, cover, use some of that to buy a house or some carrying expenses. But I think other than that, that's really the indication of where people see. And then you read headlines of things that you don't know as well, like new Fed chairman coming out. They may want to lower rates. It doesn't mean rates are going to lower, but just the psychology of it happening may create an enthusiasm.
And then they blow up Nadler's phone looking for cheaper
Because
mortgages.
the expectation that it translates into all the rates.
Exactly.
Mortgages, what I'm going to pay in my retail debt, like if
Well,
I'm
if they
shopping.
watch this show regularly, they would know that's not the case.
Understood. But
Even
it's
rates,
still,
it should lower, like credit card rates. There's not the one for one. If the Fed could cut rates 1% tomorrow, credit card rates are not going down 1%. It's not going to happen.
No, true, but people don't necessarily realize that. They just have it in their mind.
Well, look in
that
the camera
it's
and tell them.
it's your show. You're the boss.
When you do a study about consumer sentiment and confidence, that's not always based off of numbers and facts. It's off of feelings and impressions.
All right, so this is a good lead-in to explain what the difference is. Besides having different names, they look at different things. So sentiment, which came out last week, is done by University of Michigan. So if you went to Ohio State, you probably don't care about the statistic, because I've never seen two colleges that dislike each other. I mean, maybe there's others, but that's a bad one. And consumer confidence was done by something called the Conference Board. I don't know where they get the name from. But so consumer confidence is more focused on employment. I used AI for this because I want to try to feel current.
That's the inside voice. You're not supposed to say that out loud.
Business, I want to seem hip. Using the word hip shows I'm not hip. Lena's like, yeah, that is correct. Right?
Fail.
So consumer confidence is going to look at employment, business conditions, economic optimism, if there is such a thing. And it might lag a little bit because you're data dependent. Sentiment is about your feelings, personal finances, things of that nature. Buying attitudes. What's your buying attitude? Is that really a thing?
I don't know. I buy.
Lena, is buying attitude
I
like
see it, I
I
like
want
it,
to
I
buy
value
more? Is that how you, those words, what does that mean to you? It's like, I don't like buying stuff. I don't, Okay. Yeah, we got to shop till you drop. That's true. The economy needs the help.
That's right. Yeah, I'm contributing to GDP. Go out and buy
So
new things.
when you have things measured two different ways, you're going to get different results. And if you look at the employment data, you could understand people being pessimistic. But two other data points came out. Obviously, there's two parts of the economy there's services and manufacturing, right? Services is like 80%, 85% of our GDP. And the headline, service providers registered the strongest back-to-back growth since 2024. It's like, great, that was like a year and a half ago. We'll take it. So that was good.
Why is that so lagged
What do you mean lagged?
from 2024?
No,
the
it's the
comparison.
strongest
Oh,
back-to-back
okay.
growth. It had
All
2 months of growth we haven't seen in a year and a half-ish. But the lagging thing, thank God, it's the smaller part of the economy is manufacturing, grew the first time in a year in January. So that's happy news, right?
Yeah.
Are you happy hearing that?
Yeah.
Because they got to make your furniture for your basement, and
I just bought a piece to go.
yeah, I'm sure
That's
you
a little
did.
bit of a head scratch to the
to go
manufacturing
down.
because of what's going on. Are we allowed to say the T word still or not with the tariffs? Right,
Well,
manufacturing.
It's funny because you can read articles, and there's something inherently not factually based in people's general opinion about tariffs and again, we're done saying it because we've been proven 100% right.
And
Tariffs
yet you're going to say it
do
again.
not cause runaway inflation. They do not. There's zero evidence. All the inflation that we see, first of all, more than half of the inflation increase in any given month is housing. Okay? We don't tariff housing. And it's all in services.
Take a deep breath.
No. I'm a skilled podcast host. I don't need to breathe. I'm piping in oxygen through a secret portal that you can't see because I get wound up with this. Don't make me lose my train of thought. So service inflation is it's still keeping inflation higher than we like. We don't tariff services. I don't know how much more evidence people need. There's a lot of scary stories saying about how much consumers are spending of this versus the companies, and there's still court cases involved in this. Just let's see how it all plays out. But for now, inflation is higher than we want. But it's not 9% like it was just a couple of years ago. We're under 3%. 2% is an arbitrary number they just pick out of thin air. 2%, we'll target that.
Right.
It's, I think we have to realize the biggest problem is housing. It's not coming down fast enough. And it is the source of virtually all the inflation some months. So people have to I understand affordability is every other word. If you watch a talk show, right? It's how do we make things more affordable? You got the answer for that?
I don't.
We make more of it. I mean, that's typically the way.
Right.
Right,
And when it comes
true,
to
but-
housing, the only way to do that is to create more inventory, more construction.
Right.
But you need to incentivize that, right? So the construction costs are high, long-term mortgage borrowing.
Yeah, they got to borrow
is
money
high.
too.
So
Right,
all
to
those things
build.
are keeping developers on the sideline until
and the
until it makes
regulations.
sense.
Let's not forget
Well, you're-
in everywhere you go and look at urban locations, the amount of regulation that inhibits their ability to build, like it goes on in New York all the time, right? Don't they always do everything now? They're capped at most of the time 99 units. Why? Because after that, you hit regulation.
Well, 485X has been a disaster. And then you have to pay ridiculous
right,
rates.
understood. But that
pay
is
rates.
what keeps them from building. They could have enough land to put, say, a 300-unit building, but they cap it at 99 because they're going to hit regulations that just cost too much.
It's funny because you warn them, if you do this, you're only going to get a 99-unit building. No.
Yeah, and it's been proven what
and you read
everybody is
about it.
doing.
But there is one other reason that more housing isn't being built. If you look at new home sales and you look at the supply of new home sales, it's too high.
Yeah, too much.
And now you have existing home sale prices are higher than new home sale prices. So it goes, and we said this last week, to build is great, but you've got to build what's needed. And unfortunately, that's lower income housing. To do that, you typically need incentives, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And then there are ancillary issues that happen also. So there's a building on 61st and 1st where a developer bought the building, and instead of converting it into condos or rentals, the value he sees is to turn into a homeless shelter. So now all of a sudden, this building is going to have 500 beds for, I think it's going to be, women towards the end of their, homeless journey. But that's where developers may see a little bit more value instead of creating more inventory for people to rent or buy condos. Right. So that's 500 beds you could have added into the inventory in New York City, which is not incentivized right now.
Well, you see this though with office buildings, being converted, even though there aren't deep incentives to do that. 30 years ago, when I was this big, when I started at Rebney, the Lower Manhattan Plan had been passed, 421G, where you got exemptions
right, I remember.
and abatements to build south of Murray Street in older office buildings because there was like a 25% vacancy rate. Wow. And it worked like a charm. You think of the financial district and how it's grown. It's been the fastest growing neighborhood. It used to be at 5 o'clock, there was nothing there.
It was like ghost town.
It was ghost town. Now it's filled with people who love it down there.
But they also built out, once they saw that there were a lot more residential families there, they rebuilt South Street Seaport.
Yes.
It's gorgeous there. They have the Tin Building a little bit farther north. The whole atmosphere down there changed because of one policy change that triggered all of this. But what's happened since then?
Well, there's a lack of any desire in Albany and here to give incentives to convert or build housing unless it has strict rules. And I understand we need more affordable housing. Nobody denies that. But, requiring wages that make projects, a lot less profitable and it's dictating that you got to pay this. Look, the city and the state have every right to say, you want this? Well, here's what we want from you. It's a negotiation. But bend a little bit because it's not working.
Yeah, but even with the affordability, and I see it like almost every day, you get the emails, the housing lottery launched at this building or this building. And I look at the range that you can do. So sometimes it'll be like 80,000, but the high end, somebody making $200 and something thousand a year really doesn't need an affordable. And I look at that and go, now, if you're making, say, $225, you can get one of these affordable units, but now a low-income family that could really actually use that unit who don't make $225, where are they going?
Well,
You've got a person who can afford market rate in an affordable housing makes absolutely no sense to me.
Rent stabilization is the same way. You're letting people, because you don't want any of the units to leave stabilization, so they can never be deregulated. But you have people there that don't need a subsidized, basically. I mean, it's not technically so, but they don't need that level of apartment. We all know people that they make a very good living. They could afford to buy something, but why, right? Sure, I'm getting this great deal on rent in this apartment, and who knows? Maybe it will get frozen at some point.
See, and I feel like that's the other half that's missing, besides the need to build more, because clearly you just need more supply. But if we fix the, quote, affordable end of it with this income limits that people can have, where you really can afford market, then you should be in a market. I think it opens an opportunity for more people.
I can't help but think that this has got to be the lawyer's fault. Isn't it? They're the ones that keep healthcare costs too high. Is this true?
Did I tell you?
Is this true?
Did I tell you they're
the
going to
lawyers?
get
That's
attacked?
terrible.
Yeah. But the flip side of that is, you imply that the tenant may not need the protections.
I don't
of
have
rent
to imply it.
stabilization.
I mean, it's true.
You said it. But the flip side is, if you're the landlord of the building and this tenant vacates and you can't raise the rent almost at all.
Well, yeah,
right?
MCI,
Well,
major capital improvements
you're
are gone.
Now,
So
all of a
they
sudden, you're
don't
going to lose
care.
3 months of rent, right? Because you got to turn the apartment over, find somebody, get them in. You're going to lose 3 months of rent to get a tenant who's going to pay pretty much the same amount. So
who
why
cares
should they,
about the landlords anymore, right? When you look at the legislation
No,
that's
and
come
that's
out,
part of
you
the
should,
forgotten
because if
shit.
this landlord owns a rent-stabilized building and he's taking a hit on this building, when he has a building that's market rent, he's got to make it up over there, right? So you're really restricting.
I know, I agree
And
with
that
you.
creates more of an affordability
exactly.
problem as well.
I
So
think-
what happened in the past, what you use a good word, the MCI, is that when there was a rent-stabilized apartment, if the tenant vacated, if the rent was over $2,000, this is a little bit old information, but the general idea, if the rent was over a certain amount and there was a vacancy, it's no longer protected by rent stabilization. It goes market.
Right,
So
that was called
landlord
vacancy. We have luxury decontrol, where if the income of the tenants
is over
gets
a
too
certain
high,
amount.
then it would be direct, and then there's vacancy decontrol. And you could, MCI's major capital improvements, you could recapture, raise the rent
Right.
by a certain amount based on the improvements you made. This is why, now that basically doesn't exist anymore, we have warehousing of, we don't even know how many units. Could be 50,000, could be 100,000.
Tens of thousands.
And because they just can't fix it.
Exactly. And what happens is it's not the city who's supposed to enforce a tenant who's getting the benefits of rent stabilization. It was the landlord who was really enforcing it by taking them to housing court and say, hey, this isn't your primary residence. You're making too much money. The rent, and deregulate it so they can turn it to market. But if that
they have no incentive
is not there anymore
that.
because the tenant leaves, they can't turn the apartment
It's not even
around.
an incentive. An incentive says like something they might do if
You're
the
right.
opportunity's there.
It wasn't the best.
Here, it's
Right.
like, no, but it's just like,
They're not motivated to worry about
That's a better
the
word.
person.
they're not
who
going to
is-
recapture that investment they've made in their
Right.
building.
So the person that's now sitting outside of the affordability portion of it, they're not motivated to do anything about it because then they're not going to be able to rent it.
Exactly.
So keep the money you are getting versus the zero, because they still have to pay the taxes. They still have to heat the building, the air conditioning.
And nobody freezes
Mortgage.
any of their
Right.
costs.
Right. That's the problem, is that the rest of the stuff is continuing to go up. It's got to come from someplace.
Right.
We're businesses. It's a capital market. We're businesses. People want to make money, and they should.
Yeah. On the flip side, there are a lot of people who need the benefits of rent control and rent
Nobody's denying it.
stabilization.
Right. No, absolutely.
So those people are really going to end up getting slack because of the
And then the people that can't get those units have to look to the market rates, which market rate rentals, which are very unaffordable to a lot of people. All right, we got to take a break for some more important messages, and we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Evan Greenberg with Langdon Title. I specialize in title insurance across New York, helping real estate attorneys, agents, and brokers close with confidence. I solve problems fast and keep your deals moving. Contact me anytime.
Looking to stage a property but on a tight budget and timeline? Stage with Stage and Fold. Stylish, lightweight, foldable, 3D printed cardboard furniture that looks real. Quick delivery and easy assembly. Staging starts at just $199 a month per room, and setup takes less than 30 minutes. Contact us today to stage smarter, sell faster, save thousands with Stage and Fold.
Their phone or always leaves your text on red? Leaves your text on red.
Built a Corky roof with $1,000 loan.
Tell us a little bit about how you actually came from.
Welcome to the build-up, John Rowan.
Thanks for having me.
We're coming to you here from Studio 1873.
It's not 57% over 2.7 million.
So then, here, cheers. And we're back. All right. So all we hear about is everything's unaffordable. We hear about $1.2 trillion in credit card debt, student loan payments restarting, people can't afford them. More people starting to even get behind on their mortgages, let alone be able to buy a home.
Yeah.
But we mentioned before, GDP grew at a 4.4% rate in the third quarter and is forecast to have grown about 4.2%, again, with the delay in reporting.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll know this in 26. So then the question is, and I'll start with Lisa because ladies first.
Okay.
And she's an economist, not a lawyer. See, Ray laughed at that one. He likes that. We were going to make him wear like a plate on him and it says lawyer. This way we know.
the scarlet letter.
Send hate mail
with
to
the L.
CTL
Put your L on.
at bhsusa.com. All right, Lisa Rae. So we all know that economic growth, GDP, 70% is consumer spending. So what is a recession has to happen at some point. So why hasn't it happened now? And what's going to tip us into recession?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, weak job growth is actually not a bad thing, as you know, because it's going to help with inflation.
It will.
So we may actually, I hate to use that soft landing, but we may actually eventually get there. I know weak job growth, nobody wants to see that, but if it keeps us out of a recession and we have moderate and slow job growth over the next 6 months, we might not ever really hit that recession.
The problem is the Fed has only pulled us off a soft landing once, and by the way, for those of you at home or walking to this, listening to it, the number one cause of recessions in the United States, bad Fed policy. And when you have an attorney running the Fed and an attorney slated to run the Fed starting in May,
thank you,
lawyers.
Ray. Thank you, Ray.
It's a paperwork.
Team lawyers.
So, Shar, what are your thoughts on this? A lot of economists, and I'll own up to it, including myself, thought after inflation hit a 40-year high, and it was the labor market that kept us out of the abyss. And we always said once that softens, you got to expect a recession. We haven't had it. In fact, we're seeing, based on you could say, well, that's the way GDP is calculated because, if you have, you cut back on your imports, that's going to make GDP higher. If you're building stuff and building up an inventory, you're not really selling it, that's making GDP higher. What are your thoughts on recession? What's it going to take? Why have we been so lucky? Are we just charmed?
Well, listen, I think there's a dichotomy here of the weakened jobs reports that we've been seeing, and at the same
which probably
time,
are weaker than what we're being told.
Are we getting revisions next week also? What's coming out next week?
We're getting the jobs
PLLC.
report is coming out on Wednesday.
I was saying, right, in 2 days.
And the anticipation is it's going to get worse before it gets better, right?
I don't think nobody's saying gets better. I think it's.
You don't think it's going to get better?
I think it's a funk that we're stuck in, the no hire, no fire thing. It's when you see the other parts, the job openings aren't what they were, and more people filing for unemployment. They're spending longer on unemployment. But, as I said in the blog last week, economic growth is not based on hiring. It at least directly, it's about consumer spending. And for now, wages are still growing about 1.5% faster than prices. So the people can still afford to buy things, but
it might not feel that way, but the numbers do bear it out.
Right. So what do you foresee this year?
But we've also seen the market growing, right?
Yeah, I mean,
we've also seen consumer sentiment is positive; it's not negative.
Well, that's this month. That's that soft data thing. It's based on emotion and feelings.
So, what Fed policies could they have implemented the last 6 to 12 months to avoid us have been in this point?
Well, the problem is the easiest answer is they could have cut rates a little more aggressively. But when inflation, is still above your target, and now I would think. Don't expect the Fed to do anything until the new chairman is in there, because that's usually what happens. But you want us. It's the dual mandate. If the Fed can't do one thing, why are you telling them to do two things? Price stability and maximum employment. They are in direct contrast.
Right.
And I'd say all the time, Paul Volcker in the early '80s had to cause a recession by hiking rates very quickly because it was the only way inflation was going to go away. I think we can live with this levels of inflation, and I think the federal funds rate does not need to be this high as it is right now. The problem is you can't keep it at zero for years and not expect consequences. Right. It's transitory. Yeah, okay. See, lawyers.
So how far away do you think we are from a recession?
Well, I think so. A couple of things to look out for. You watch the spending, right, and the household debt. Because at some point, even if wages are growing faster than prices, people are going to be tapped out. And I would have thought this would have been the case like 2 years ago. Because this started, we're talking about like 4 years of this. We're not talking about, it's only been 6 months. Inflation's come down for sure. It started running
up in 21.
Yeah, I mean, and peaked in like March of 22 at 9% year over year. You don't recover from that easily.
Right.
It's the choice of taking the Band-Aid off slowly or just ripping it off. Ripping it off would have been jack rates up, cause a recession, get it over with, and then we move forward. But we're hanging on here, and I think that it's certainly concerning that not only are we not adding a lot of jobs, but as we've seen the last couple of years, the revisions can be can make it look very negative.
Right.
And by the time you find that out, it's too late, right? And that's why we have this skepticism in Nadler more than anybody of any jobs numbers we get out of the BLS.
So I think the other issue is that politics come into play as well, right? So you have midterms coming up. If you're coming towards, administration and the White House being, coming up against their election, you want to show a robust economy, even if you're propping up the numbers, so you can run on that platform.
So you're saying there could be ulterior motives here.
Exactly.
And no, I get that. And look, we also, another thing that we're going to be watching closely is because of law changes, income tax refunds are expected to be really high this year. The SALT cap was raised so that, so people may have more money to spend. And Lisa's going to spend every penny of it. That just switch to clothing or something else.
I do that too.
But I mean, I think we're all worried that, affordability is the buzzword, but I'm certainly concerned for my son and his generation. You hear every generation say this because our national debt just keeps going up to numbers that we couldn't even explain. And it's concerning. All you hear is, I'm never going to be able to afford a house. I can't afford healthcare. I can't afford to go to college. You wonder. It's depressing when we say it. Say something optimistic, Lisa Rae.
I'm going to spend my tax refund on stuff for me.
Gifts for your boss is always
so
a good thing.
optimistic for me.
I think the other side of it is that kids and the younger generation have access to so much more information right now than we ever did growing up, that they can educate themselves on a lot of things that would help soften that blow when they get a little bit older, right?
Yeah.
Since I started here, what have you been telling me about my kid? Start the 529 account.
Yes. Did you start the 529 account?
I've definitely implemented thoughts in my mind of how to
See,
execute
this is a lawyer. This is a lawyer.
And there's lawyers speaking.
I have a 4-point plan to open this account up.
To your point, kids have the ability for mobility or like remote work, things that we didn't have in our generation because it didn't exist. Yeah. So you could live, say, here in New York and stay here, or move somewhere affordable and be able to work in a New York City job or an LA job and not have to live there.
Yeah, it's true.
And it gives that generation something we never had. And I think that's why the kids are so much more resilient, because they see that. Like we were like, okay, well, I got out of college and I live in New York, so I have to find a job like here. Otherwise, I'm packing all of my stuff and I'm moving to wherever the job is. I don't have to move anymore. I could sit at my computer in my house, in my nicely renovated house, which I'm almost finished with. See, I had to throw that in there. But the opportunity to, if you look at some of the jobs, you can see a lot of hybrid and a lot of remote. And depending on what the work is, you don't have to be there.
And they are buying, Gen Z can complain all they want, but they are buying homes earlier than our generation did because of that very reason. They could live
anywhere.
In the South, the Midwest, and work in Manhattan. Huh. I mean, that sentiment is continuing to change as companies are like, we're paying a lot for this office space.
Because how much the real estate costs companies to have a body at that desk. Like, if I have a person sitting here, if I just have that retail space and I have X number of employees, every square footage is costing me this much. Darn tootin'. If I'm paying for it, someone's tush is going to be.
First time we've heard that one on the
darn
podcast.
tootin'.
I like it.
Somebody's showing their age.
Well, I'm being ladylike, I have to watch my language. Lucy will get upset.
I think it's a great point.
But,
go ahead, finish.
No, I was going to say, but that, that's, so depending on what a company needs as far as what the employee needs, and if they start cutting back on how much their footprint is, they can have more remote work. If they realize, productivity doesn't change, and I know there's been umpteen studies about physically being in person, and he talked about productivity, but I think COVID changed all that. Because once you were really forced into remote work, could you get away with a certain amount of stuff? But now we're moving into an environment where people are like, well, they're watching. Are you actually getting? And I can see if you're getting your work done.
Plus, I missed Ray during the pandemic. I didn't get to see my buddy.
I missed everybody.
Well, Lena wasn't here before the pandemic, so we knew we were going to miss somebody. We just didn't know who it was.
We just didn't know it was you yet.
Shar, you had something to say here.
So we recently had 2 positions open in my firm that we were trying to fill. One of them was an in-office
chief economist,
show every day position that there was no remote work available. Right, you had to be in the office. We needed you there. There was another position where it would have been helpful for the person to be there, but they didn't really need to be there, sort of because we were used to it. And when me and my partner were working at negotiating salary and things like that, we had to factor that if the person is in the office, I had an extra X number of dollars per month cost to get them a computer in the office, a desk, and there were costs associated with it, and we had to tack that onto the salary that it was going to cost us. And we said, you know what? You don't need to be here. If you can prove to us in the first 3 months that you are going to be efficient and get your stuff done at home. And she had a great setup, and she was, and it worked out. But we've also had people who are hybrids, and you can definitely see a lack of productivity. But I also think that person really lost a little bit of, I want to say job growth, but the camaraderie of seeing somebody every day in the office. You sort of, build a rapport with them much more.
But we're in an isolated world where my son's generation just looks at their phone all day long. Yeah. They don't call their friends. They don't see their friends. They text their friends.
But that's a good point that you make about job growth. I'd be curious how the studies will show whether or not, because they used to talk about so much with productivity. Now it's, whether or not you have the ability to be seen. Yeah. And so for the people that are higher up who do the promoting, do they see you? Does it make a difference that they see you in the office versus you're sitting at home and they know the work is being done because you're producing the report, you're answering the questions, whatever the work is that you have to do. But it'd be curious at some point down the road to see which metric really is better. Yeah. And that if we go back to full 5 days a week, or at least in some cases.
I wouldn't want to deprive my staff of me.
Oh, I know.
That's why you have to come into the office.
I
you
cry.
Can't hurl these insults on the computer.
When
we're recording it now.
Then there's a record of
it
there.
When he says we can work remote, I go, do we have to? Because I really want to come in, and I'd like to do the commute on the train, sitting on the railroad.
I'll tell you what, here's what we do.
stuck.
We relocate the research department to your house. That'll give you another place to renovation to do. We'll put a little studio in there, and then I want it to come
Well, I have a lot of
Mondays.
room in the basement, the back half. It's chilly, but I've got room back there.
And it's chilly enough around here.
But when you talk about kids these days being on their phones and isolation, this is going back, I had a friend of the family who was trying to extend his house on Long Island, and he had to go to the city to get a variance and a permit, and he was a surgeon, and he went in front of the board because they had initially denied the application, but he appealed it, and what he said his argument in front of the board was, listen, I have 3 kids at home who are growing up. There's 2 options for them. They can either be stuck in their room playing video games, and back there it wasn't really phones, but it was whatever, on their devices, or I can put a ping pong table, a pool table, a place where there's no electronics. My kids' friends can come in, they can play, they can talk, they can fight, they can argue, they can joke, they can socialize. And he said the reason I need that is because as a surgeon, when he was doing rounds or he was seeing patients, he said, I have these kids working for me, new doctors, who lost that ability to talk to people.
Right, that bedside manner.
Eye contact. He said so much of my job, besides being a doctor, is talking to patients, giving them bad news, giving them good news. Mm-hmm. You have to look people in the eye. You have family members who are emotional. You have to show empathy. And he's like, there are kids growing up whose heads were buried in their phones, and I don't want that.
Right.
And he got the variance granted, and he got it. I thought it was a great argument.
That is a great argument.
Because everybody's put the devices down.
He was very surgical in how he built his argument.
There you go.
All right.
You had to know that was
so to
coming.
sum up, I know it seems confusing. You're going to hear these great reports about how strong the economy is and how fast it's growing, and that's true the way we calculate it. But as there always is there's concerns, and the labor market right now is concerning. I get the frustration of younger people worried, especially, my son's a freshman in college. He's got to worry about, is he going to study something for the next 4 years that's going to be wiped out by AI, and then he won't have a job? That is, but that's why you have to adapt to your surroundings. And I've always tried to tell them that. Don't expect people to change for you. You change, and that's how you stay employed most of the time, or you host a successful podcast. I'm trying to get there, you know.
Is this the actual success or a byproduct of your success?
They like, Greg, you shoot your mouth off for a living at sales meetings. Why don't we just do it in the studio and
Stick a
film
microphone on
it
there.
and we'll make pure magic. Or just anybody can get a podcast and it's okay.
They'll just hand it to you. You go.
But, it's also a way to plug my gigs too. Appearing at the Third Rail on Valentine's Day from 7 to 9, the Nikki and Greg Experience. Please come down. Mozzarella sticks. Come on, Ray. What kind of paisan are you?
They ordered them in Italy.
Yes.
And you got to go like that when you do it, or it's not Italian. We got Italians in this room. You got to watch out. But so I'll get concerned when I start to see really negative jobs numbers. No hire, no fire can only be in existence for so long. Something gives at some point. But I've made the mistake too often to try to predict recessions. You always wonder when you see a budget from an administration, they never plan. They never say, oh, there's going to be a recession in this year. They figure if they don't mention it, it won't happen. But
because sometimes self-fulfilling prophecy, if you say we anticipate, people go, oh, whoa, I better start holding on.
They think.
Stop shopping. No, but
it matters what consumers and what CFOs think.
No, that's what I'm saying is that so if you put that psychology out there and you say, well, it's possible and we think and it might be coming in 6 months, people start to hold on to their cash. They stop spending now, and then guess what?
Nobody has cash. Nobody holds on to it.
In 6 months, guess what? The recession that may not have happened happens because the consumer, which is most of GDP growth, right, stops shopping, stops spending, and then all of a sudden it's self-fulfilling.
Give her props. That was nice. That was good.
No, thank you.
There you go. I've never seen him clap.
Well, I don't put in the effort. I get tired.
No, but this is why it's kind of muddy waters. Why it's hard to predict because no hire, no fire gives certain people a level of confidence. They're not firing anybody, so I feel a little more secure in my job. I'm making more than inflation is stripping out, so I know I'm comfortable spending a little more. So you're in that weird holding pattern. Right. We're not going so far forward, but we're not quite going backwards. But how long do we sit there before something gives? But maybe housing will be the recovery that is going to end up turning it around because rates are coming down. And
you're seeing the slow turnaround. There's a report last week that the highest percentage of home buyers got a discount since 2019. You go, okay,
I read
that's we're starting to see more negotiability. Inventory is ticking up. Rates have been in a narrow range, just above 6. So that's just going to take longer. When you have the greatest shortage of housing any of us can remember, maybe except for the wake of World War II, right. Then that's going to take time. Just like getting inflation from 9 to 2% annually isn't done in a couple of years unless you put a lot of pain.
Something drastic.
So have faith out there, you young viewers and you old viewers. Just embrace change. Trust me, it's going to be one of the best things you can do in your life is to be excited and really don't resist it because it's going to change with or without you. And you need to change with it. And a lot of what I've done over the 34 years of my career, a lot of that hasn't changed. See data, calculate data, write about it. But the tools I use are changing all the time. And AI may help save us here because of how productive it makes us. So maybe you won't see hiring that skyrockets, but you'll see economic growth because the work's getting done. The productivity is a huge part, too, that goes into keeping us out of recessions.
Well, there was an interesting article, I think, did I read it last week? They were talking to CEOs who've been investing heavily in AI, and as of now, doesn't mean forever, they're not seeing the return on the investment.
It's too early.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So it's hard to gauge, but whatever dollars they're putting in right now, it's not making them more than what they've put into it. So
it's hard because you can't say, okay, what happened the last time we had an AI boom? It's like,
right. There's no frame of reference.
They're likening this to the internet. This is the biggest change in productivity.
Right.
Not since the Industrial Revolution. Unless you're not going back that far, but for what the internet did. And who knows? Maybe has it been overhyped? Only time will tell.
Yeah.
You know, much like certain sports teams that playing Queens.
See,
you know,
you think he's nice to me.
Are you a Mets fan?
I am lifelong, yeah.
Oh my
Die hard.
That's her problem, isn't it?
See, you think that he's nice to me.
That's why we were talking about Howie Rosen. You knew so much about.
I have to be nice to Lisa when she's on, or Lucy finds me. I'm gonna knock on the door.
Is Lucy mom?
Yes.
Okay.
She'd be holding like a lead pipe or something to break my kneecaps with. All right, that's the show for this week. Again, no show next week. Sorry, it's a holiday, and then I'll be in Texas getting a suntan or probably freezing.
When are we going to be back?
A week from Monday.
Oh, I thought you said you were going to be away then.
No, I'm going to be. I can't
so
film.
2 weeks, right? You'll be back 2 weeks.
All right,
filming.
2 weeks.
Look, you know, just rewatch the old ones. Pretty much say the same thing all the time, right, Ray? Thanks.
You go into withdrawals. Then you can
Well, we should just have an archive of like
up.
positive economic data episode, weak economic data episode, sporting event episode. Like we just run those.
Whatever you're in the mood for, you can watch those.
When's the AI Greg podcast come out? This way.
So you're basically asking for reruns. That's what you're saying?
No, but just use AI to change it. Look, if I can watch babies disco dancing and stuff through the AI,
which you do.
I think we can do this. Anyhow, thanks to Ray and Lena, thanks to Shar and Lisa Rae.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Our best wishes to Scott Nadler for a recovery from his cold.
Better.
And we thank everybody for their support. It's really been spectacular. We love doing the show. If you want to drop us an email, have anything in your mind, you miss Scott Nadler, CTL@BHSUSA and have USA.com. Sorry, I got the .com there. And have a great week, everybody.